Having already covered perfect competition in earlier videos, today we're going to examine the second major archetype of market structure, monopoly. As we had previously discussed, perfect competition and its assumptions are difficult to come by in the real world, such that we only can see approximations. Monopoly, on the other hand, is far more common. Their assumptions are easier met in reality. Obviously, as a monopoly, there's only a single firm that exists selling a good. So unlike perfect competition, we won't use side-by-side graphs to demonstrate monopoly. There will just be one graph that represents both the firm and the industry because they will be synonymous. The reason why there will only be one firm is because of extremely high barriers to entry that exist. These can take many forms, some of them legal, such as patents, copyrights, trademarks. Others can be more economic, such as economies of scale that prevent any further firms from entering the industry because they would do so at a much, much higher cost than a single large firm. The last thing that we are going to add to our assumption of monopoly and our model is that there will be no price discrimination. This simply means that all customers will pay the same price for the good. That is, a monopoly, which of course is going to face a downward sloping demand curve, can't sell one good to a customer at a higher price and then a second good to a customer at a lower price. If they do want to sell a second good, they will have to lower the price for the first customer as well to sell at the same price for both customers. Some common modern-day examples of monopoly range from government-controlled monopolies, such as the Long Island Railroad or PSE&G, to private monopolies, such as De Beers or many pharmaceutical companies that hold patents on new drugs. Let's look into the implications of our assumption of no price discrimination a little bit further. Here we have a demand schedule for a monopoly, and simply noting that as price decreases, the quantity increases. And what that means is that at a price of $10, one item is willing to be purchased. So if the monopoly would like to sell an additional item beyond that, they must lower the price to $9, and then they can sell two. If they want to sell an additional one, they have to continue lowering the price and add additional quantities of goods. This is going to have a connection to our assumption of no price discrimination, because you cannot sell the first good for $10 and the second good for $9. That would be charging two different customers two different prices for the exact same good, and that is a violation of our assumption. While this does exist in the real world, most of our models looking at monopoly include this assumption. This is going to have a profound impact on the Mr. DARP curve that we had seen under conditions of perfect competition. And to demonstrate that, I want to take a look at the impact of marginal revenue because of no price discrimination. To do that, we're going to have to compute our revenue first and then our marginal revenue. I'm going to give you a second to pause the video to either print this screen out so you can fill this in or to jot the numbers down. Alright, let's continue. So if we have a price of 10 and a quantity of 1, obviously our total revenue is going to be $10. As the price goes down, the quantity increases so that $9 results in a revenue of 18. 8 times 3 is 24, 7 times 4 is 28, 6 times 5 is 30, 5 times 6 is also 30, 4 times 7 is 28. Notice, for example, that had there been price discrimination allowed, that the revenue from two goods would not be $18 but $19. You'd be able to sell the first good for $10 and the second good for $9 for a total of $19 in revenue. However, because of our assumption of no price discrimination, to sell two goods, both goods must be sold at $9, which results in a revenue of $18. Let's take a look at the implication on marginal revenue. So if you have 0 goods, your total revenue will be 0. So with the addition of the first good, our total revenue has gone from 0 to $10, meaning our marginal revenue will also be 10. But here is where things differ. As we sell the second good, our total revenue only increases from $10 to $18, which is an increase of 8. So it's very important to note that while the price of the good is $9, the additional income to the firm is only $8 because there is no price discrimination. As we go down the line here, the difference between 18 and 24 is 6. The difference between 24 and 28 is 4. 28 to 30 is 2. 30 to 30 is 0. And ultimately, from 30 to 28 is a marginal revenue of negative $2. Here we see the graphical implications of the schedule that we just completed. Here is the monopoly's downward sloping demand curve, indicating that in order to sell additional units of good, as quantity increases, price is going to have to decrease. So we have that downward sloping demand curve again. Here we have the marginal revenue, and notice that unlike perfect competition, marginal revenue and the demand curve do not coincide. Again, this is the direct result of our assumption of no price discrimination, combined with the fact that monopolies must lower their price to sell additional goods. So if you refer back to your chart, you'll notice that at quantity 1, marginal revenue and price are the same, but that at every quantity after that, the marginal revenue is less than the price at that quantity. While these two graphs represent the consumers in the industry, all we need to do to reflect the monopoly is the addition of firm information. And all firms, regardless of market structure, are going to face costs that we are now familiar with in marginal cost, average variable cost, and average total cost. Let's add those now and see what the implications are. You'll note that the marginal cost curve is identical to the marginal cost curves we've seen earlier with perfect competition, as well as the average variable cost with its minimum at the marginal cost and the distance between average variable and average total cost getting smaller and smaller as quantity increases, representing a decreasing average fixed cost. So now what we want to do is apply the same rules that we have learned with perfect competition to monopoly to see what our analysis will yield. So the monopoly really has the same motivations as any other firm, that is, it wants to maximize profit. And we'll recall from perfect competition that the profit maximizing rule is that marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. Now we must be very, very clear here that this determines the quantity to produce, not the price. So we can see that marginal cost intersects marginal revenue at this quantity, so we can indicate our profit maximizing quantity by dropping down a vertical line there. Now it's worth noting again that this is not the price. Many people are tempted to draw the price at this point, but I'll point out that DARP, demand equals average revenue equals price, is represented by the other downward sloping line, so that at this quantity the price is actually found up here. So we have to extend our vertical line upwards until we hit that curve, and then indicate our price by coming over to this side. We can draw in P1 at that point. We can use our analysis skills that we developed under perfect competition to notice that if we multiply the quantity by the price, the area of this rectangle will be the total revenue that this firm will earn at that quantity. If we want to find profit, however, we're going to have to account for costs as well. So if we can find the total cost by multiplying the quantity times the average total cost at that quantity, we will get a new box representing the total cost incurred by the firm in producing the profit maximizing number of goods. Here we can see that the total revenue exceeds the total cost by this much, indicating that this firm is earning an economic profit. Now it's worth noting that not all monopolies will earn an economic profit. It simply depends on where their cost curves are in relation to their demand curves at the quantity that's being produced. So if you notice that at this profit maximizing quantity, because the price is greater than the average total cost, this firm will earn an economic profit. Because of the extremely high barriers to entry, this economic profit is going to continue to be earned as no additional firms can join the industry to lower the profits that this firm is going to be earning. So while this is clearly a positive to the monopoly, we have to recall our goal as economists to make the world a better place. Is this monopoly good for society? And the answer is intuitive. No, it's not. But to be more specific, we're going to have to look at the concepts that we have previously discussed, such as allocative, productive, and economic efficiency. You'll recall that allocative efficiency takes place when the marginal social cost equals the marginal social benefit. As this is the only firm in society, the marginal cost of this firm is also the marginal cost to society, the marginal social cost, as it's a monopoly. Similarly, our demand curve, as previously noted, is going to be equal to our marginal social benefit. And so we can see that the marginal social cost intersects the marginal social benefit at a quantity that is greater than the profit maximizing quantity. And so we can indicate that this monopoly is not producing at the allocatively efficient quantity. We might also want to take a look at productive efficiency. And you'll recall that productive efficiency takes place when the average total cost curve is at its minimum, that is, when marginal cost equals average total cost. And we can see that that takes place right here. And so to be productively efficient, this monopoly would have to produce at that quantity. And because economic efficiency takes place when both allocative and productive efficiency take place at the same time, and the monopoly is neither allocatively nor productively efficient, we can easily conclude that monopolies are not economically efficient. This is also a good lesson in differentiating between efficiency and profit maximizing. Notice that this monopoly will profit maximize at Q1, where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, and that's great for the monopoly, but it does not result in the socially optimal or least cost production of this good. So we can see that efficiency is not the same thing as profit maximizing. I thought I would provide a clearer rendition of our profitable monopoly other than our hand-drawn one that we had previously seen in the video, but it's showing the same things, notably that we have a profit because at the quantity where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, the price exceeds the average total cost. We should not confuse the profit maximizing quantity with efficiency, as we can see that allocatively efficient quantity comes from where the marginal social cost equals the marginal social benefit, and that the productively efficient quantity occurs where the average total cost equals the marginal cost, that is the minimum of the average total cost curve. Because this monopoly is not allocatively efficient, that indicates that there must be deadweight loss, and so we can see the deadweight loss associated with the monopoly. It's going to be bounded by the quantity that they're producing and the allocatively efficient quantity, because there will be no deadweight loss if they're allocatively efficient, and it's going to be bound by the area where the marginal social benefit exceeded the marginal social cost. That is, society would benefit from goods in this range because the cost of producing them would be less than the benefit received by them. But because a monopoly is seeking to profit maximize, these goods are never produced, and so this area here will be the deadweight loss associated with a monopoly. And so that's further evidence that monopolies are not allocatively efficient. So what are the implications of the monopoly then? Well, some important conclusions that we have to be aware of, and these are extremely important. That monopolies charge too high a price and produce too few goods. The too few goods we can demonstrate by the fact that the monopoly is under-allocating resources, that is, it is producing a quantity less than the allocatively efficient level of output. And at that lower quantity, it's on a higher point of the demand scale. So the price is too high and they're producing too few goods. That's a benefit to the monopoly. They're able to maximize their profit at that point, but it's not a benefit to society. It's not socially optimal. In fact, monopolies can never be socially optimal because the marginal cost is less than the price. That is, the marginal social cost is less than the marginal social benefit where the monopoly is maximizing its profit. Therefore, it's appropriate for the government to consider regulation of monopolies to bring about a more efficient result for society. Once again, I hope you found the video useful, and if you have any questions, see me after class or in extra help.